Thank you very much for joining today. This event is the first series of our quarterly webinars. So obviously we've got our events that we've been hosting where we kind of talk about new technologies. They are going to continue, but what we thought would be a great opportunity is a quarterly webinar, which can be used to demonstrate some of the new things that are coming to Microsoft 365. So this will be the latest changes and updates. It's kind of a new format, so kind of bear with us as we kind of tweak and change this. So yeah, thank you very much for attending. The session will be recorded and then we'll upload it to our social media channels so that you can grab that afterwards. As a quick introduction, my name's Hugh Valentine, Managing Director here at Valto, but I've also got a lot of experience with digital transformation, especially around the Microsoft 365 and Power Platform. As we're kind of looking at the agenda, we've got the Microsoft 365 changes that we'll be running through. We'll talk about the licensing changes that are upcoming. We'll talk about Power Platform changes, and we'll talk about SharePoint and Teams. And then at the very end, there'll be some questions that you guys will be able to ask away for. We're going to kind of demonstrate some of the things. I won't show everything. There's quite a lot of changes. So we'll kind of jump in and do some quick ad hoc demos so you can see some of the new functionality that I'm talking about as well. The first kind of branch of changes is around Microsoft 365. So if anybody's signed up to our newsletter, which you will kind of get received by joining our website, then you'll see that we've kind of got new licensing changes that we're going to talk about first of all. So we've got the licensing changes that we're going to come through. So Microsoft's first increase of prices for quite a long time. We've also got the Windows 365 platform that's been announced, and we will be hosting a dedicated webinar on this. So we're going to kind of lightly touch on that. And whilst not necessarily a new product, we're also going to talk about Defender for EndPoint, which is kind of getting rebranded a little bit. It's getting added to some of the additional licenses, but it's also something that we're pushing a lot more now. So Defender for EndPoint used to be called Advanced Threat Protection, Defender Advanced Threat Protection, and it was only available as part of an E5 license, but they've now created that as a separate product, and we're able to get quite a lot of function from that. So the first kind of thing that we're looking to cover off today, and we have sent everybody a newsletter about this, is that Microsoft has announced its first price increases for 365 and Microsoft 365 in over a decade. There has been some minor changes in that, so it's not 100% correct, but to have a across the board price increase is the first time that we've seen this for quite a long time. Obviously, the factors around it are related to kind of just cost increases across the board, so inflation and such, but also what the price increases are reflecting is perhaps the additional functionality that's been added to these over the kind of period. So I don't think that anybody's going to look at these costs and suddenly decide they're going to stop using Microsoft 365. I think the costs are kind of very fair, and I think the value that things like Microsoft 365 Business Premium and the stuff they've been added to that license, it's well worth the £16 odd that it's going to cost moving forward. So as you can see, there's kind of different levels of price increases, 20% for the Business Basic, only 10% for the most popular license that we recommend, which is the Business Premium, so £16 odd. And as I said, nobody's going to complain at that additional increase, I don't think. 25% for E1, 15% for E3, 9% for E5, and then 13% for the Microsoft 365. Of interest is that the Microsoft 365 E5 has got no change to it at all. So there will be some organizations that may see this price increase from an E3 as an opportunity to start looking at the E5 cost and going to get all the functionality for 365. So at some of worrying about the budgets and what's coming, there is kind of an additional benefit for this, is that the license, which is audio conferencing, which a lot of our customers have purchased separately at £3 per user per month, is now being included in all of the business, enterprise, frontline and government licenses. So what this would give you is the ability to dial into Microsoft Teams meetings. That historically was something that you would have to pay extra for at £3. That will now be included at no cost. So there's quite a lot of our customers out there that were paying separately for that, and they'll now find that they'll be able to get this for free. It's not all bad news as well. So the Power Platform licenses are actually going down in cost. So you'll see that the Power apps per user plan, which used to be £30.20, is now kind of become £15 per user per month. And the Power apps per app plan is now going to be worth £3.75, rather going to be costing £3.75 rather than £7.50. One of the questions is audio conferencing included in the business premium? So yes, you'll get that for free. You won't have to include that at any additional costs. It would be something that you would get. A very relevant question is around when those kind of changes are going to come into effect. So they're coming into effect next year. So the exact date on that is in 6 months. So we're looking at April time for these costs to be put into effect. I think, it's March the 1st that the costs are going to come into effect. We'll just pause briefly here just to see if anybody else has any other questions, because it's a good opportunity just to kind of ask any questions around the licenses changes before we move on to the next piece. Okay, perfect. So only questions are just around, is it included in business premium, which it definitely is, and when will it take effect, which will be from the 1st of March next year. The other announcement that's kind of been recently, and before we've had any other webinars to talk around this, is that Windows 365 has been announced. We are going to host a dedicated webinar for this, but what I wanted to do is kind of outline the costs that would be available for this platform as well. As a quick summary, Windows 365 is a desktop in the cloud that you can tie to your Microsoft 365 subscription. It's based on the same technology as Windows Virtual Desktop. It's just an easier to build kind of an easier to consume model. So the Windows Virtual Desktop is based on building an environment for hundreds of users with quite a big cost. This is a simplified model in which you'd be able to buy a virtual machine depending on the size you would want on a monthly cost. So they've simplified the pricing somewhat. And in the coming weeks, we'll be looking at doing a dedicated Windows 365 webinar to show you that technology and how it works and how you guys could utilize it. The next piece is Defender for EndPoint, which I talked about briefly at the beginning. Now, as I said, for all of our managed service clients, this is something that we will now be offering as standard. So anyone who's currently on the Microsoft 365 Business Premium plan, as part of the service that we offer, we're looking to incorporate the Defender for EndPoint plan. And the reason for that is because it provides much more enhanced protection from threats, and that includes malware, software vulnerabilities, web filtering, crypto locker. So historically, we've used a product called Umbrella, which provides web filtering and crypto locker protection. However, what we see now in the market is that Defender for EndPoint is starting to provide that same level of security. So as a very quick overview of some of that functionality, I'll just quickly flick over to my Defender for EndPoint admin console. As you'll see, the kind of first thing that we're able to do with Defender for EndPoint is web filtering. So if we were to go to guns.com as an example, you'll notice now that it's kind of come up with this content is blocked. So a lot of our customers are looking for this web filtering to stop people going on downloading sites, pornography, adult content, weapons, that kind of thing. So what we're able to do with Defender for EndPoint is put web filtering in place that will stop your users from going to web pages that they shouldn't. So as a kind of immediate thing, I've tried to load this guns.com web page up, and you'll notice that that's now blocked and I'm not able to do that. It'll also do things like block crypto locker type sites as well. So there'll be a couple of methods in here. You'll see as I come into the portal, you can see all the web requests that are coming through, and it gives you quite a good view of the types of things that people are going to, whether it's high bandwidth sites, which would be downloading type stuff, or whether it's leisure or legal liability like gambling and such. So it's given us a kind of overview, and it's then showing what we're able to block and such. So this is a great way of now being able to block those web pages that we don't want our employees being able to go on. There's a number of other things that's provided with EndPoint Manager. There's, for example, we have this vulnerability management. So I'm able to see the software inventory for all the devices that are installed on this, and you can then see if they have an current weakness or exposure. So as an example here, Chrome is on a number of devices, and it has a number of weaknesses that are currently need to be addressed. So what I'm able to do is actually jump into this Chrome. I can see what the vulnerabilities are, the classification of those vulnerabilities, and how many devices are currently exposed due to that. And you'll see then it provides the events of what's causing it. And we can actually go to security recommendations about what needs to be done. So just update Google Chrome, disable various background processes. So for us, when we're looking after our customers, it's giving us a very high level of control. We're able to see exactly what the weaknesses are with those software, what the discovered vulnerabilities are, and which devices have those vulnerabilities, and then we can action those and start to report on them. The other thing that it's able to do is kind of provide scores on our devices. So we can see obviously the software vulnerabilities, but we can also see recommendations of things that common attacks that we should be looking at blocking in any devices from there. So Microsoft have a whole wealth of knowledge that's being input into Defender for EndPoint, and we can then use that to start to improve the security of our customers. So if anybody would like to get a full demonstration of Defender for EndPoint, then please get in touch and we can start to show you start to finish how this would work and how we can also start to leverage this to replace other products like Umbrella and give you a comprehensive portfolio within Microsoft. So yeah, that's kind of what that covers. Crypto locker protection is interesting. So the web filtering will block sites that they shouldn't be visiting, but it'll also identify if there's a boost of the CPU usage as well. So if suddenly the CPU starts to try and mine coins and it goes to 100%, this crypto locker protection will prevent that and give us some intelligence around that. So very good technology from here. The next piece then is around SharePoint. So there's a number of kind of changes that are coming within the SharePoint interface. The first one is something that's coming later this year, so it's planned for October, and that's basically the ability to provide a sticky first column. So you'll notice as I come into this list at the moment, as I got a list of all the kind of pieces, as I scroll across, I'm not able to see any kind of information. It just kind of locks that out. So what sticky first column would do is basically give us the ability to lock this column just like you would on Excel, and I can scroll to the right and see that information. The next one I have is calendar view. So this is something that's been requested for a long time within Microsoft 365, but has never really kind of come to fruition. So as you'll see, as we come into here, we've got an example of our leave request system, and we can now go to a calendar view, and you'll see that this is a modern calendar view. So historically, we were having to use the traditional calendar view, whereas now within the Microsoft 365, we'll have the ability to see a modern calendar where we can see the requests. So this works really well and has been a limitation of the SharePoint side of things. The other piece of functionality is now we have an auto news digest. So for our organizations that are using the news functionality, Microsoft are now automatically sending out emails to customers, which will include the branding and the other kind of pieces of your organization. So it just means that you guys can automatically send those emails without you guys having to do that. So the auto news digest is quite handy. We also have schedule news posts and pages. So the scheduling of the news post and pages, I'll jump in and show you a live example of this. It basically means that when you're going into a library, and I'll just load this one up for us now. I have to do it manually. So when we go into a library, so if I go back to my demonstration site just in here, we have a section here called News where I have my Valto head office news. And now hidden in this Pages section of this library, we're able to see that there's an option now that's called Scheduling. So once we come into the library and enable scheduling, it'll enable some new functionality when we're creating news articles and pages that will allow us to automatically schedule posts. So I've turned this one on in the page settings just here. And if I go back to the place where I would create a news article, I can hit news post just here. I'll create a blank article, and I'm able to kind of jump into here and say news article. We've got a new starter for James, who starts on the 2nd tomorrow. And you'll see that when I hit page details, we now have a new option available to us called scheduling. And I'm able to schedule a date and time, so tomorrow at 9 o'clock. And that means then it'll automatically post that article rather than it going live immediately. And this will work automatically with news articles, but it'll also work well with pages as well. So if you've got new policies that you're creating and you don't want them to be available instantly to everybody, it now starts to give us the ability to schedule things rather than them being posted immediately or having to leave them in drafts. So that's kind of a quick overview of some of the new functionality that's available within SharePoint. We'll just kind of see if there's any questions. Jade, is there any questions that have popped up around this yet?
There's one about Defender for EndPoint. It can't block the following: newly seen domains, command and control callbacks, etc. Is that right?
Yeah, so what I'd recommend is we set up a separate kind of call, and I can go through some of the functionality with that. It's not got all of that functionality yet, but it's coming, and there's a good roadmap where we'll start to get some of that. So some of it will be achieved. It's perhaps just something we can jump on a call with you to go through.
Cool, I think that's
okay.
it.
Perfect. The next piece of functionality is around Microsoft Teams. So there's a number of new things that are coming to Microsoft Teams. We won't have time to show everything today, but one of them, and I think this was a question that was asked at the very beginning, is are we looking to move away from EndPoint for Teams webinars at registrations and start to use the Teams webinar functionality? So historically, when you had your enterprise licenses, you were able to create live events, but it was something that wasn't available to the standard users, that they wouldn't be able to create this functionality. So what we have now is the ability to create a new live event. So as I jump into Teams in here and just click this little drop down, I now have live event, which is available for enterprise licenses, but I also have webinar, which is available for the business licenses. So if you guys in your organizations are looking to host and run webinars, what this will allow you to do is basically create a live event similar to how you've all joined today. But more importantly, you're able to create a registration form, which allows you guys to join and register for the event. So you guys can start to expect after we've got 2 more events which we're using EndPoint for, but moving forward on this, we'll be looking to create the registration via the Teams webinar functionality, and you guys can sign up from this method. There is some limitations, so people who perhaps are using EndPoint for registration and want to move to Teams, the limitations really at the moment are the API integrations. So one of the great things that we find with EndPoint is it allows us to automatically add people's details into a CRM system or add them to our newsletter. That kind of stuff is very manual with this approach at the moment. So it means that you would lose functionality like API integrations, but perhaps it gives a better experience of being able to join from that side of things. So yeah, Teams webinar, that's available as something that's for all business licenses. The other piece of functionality that's coming later this year, so this is planned for October, is the ability to have customizable praise badges. So the functionality that we have within Teams at the moment is very limiting. What it allows us to do is basically praise people within the organization, but it's kind of, you have to select from a list that's available in Teams. So if I was just quickly creating a new praise from this section, you'll notice that I've got quite a few different options that are available to me. But if I wanted something that didn't fit in here, I wanted to create my own badge, we're not able to do that. But in October of this year, you'll be able to add your own praise and your own badges and add your own functionality in. So that'll be great. Also planned for later this year in Q4 is the ability to have video filters. So anybody who's used the background option currently, they're able to set their background to a static image, but they'll be adding in the video filters very soon as well. So you'll be able to have some moving backgrounds, which will be quite fun. Obviously, Viva is a big topic, and that's something that we've been working with quite a few of our clients on. So on that, we'll be looking to host a dedicated webinar on that. So as well as the Windows 365 one, there will be a Viva webinar that's coming by the end of this year as well to give you guys an update on where that's going and the functionality around that. So there's also quite a lot of changes that are coming with Power Platform. So any of the customers that we're working with who are using Power Apps, Power Platform, Power Portals, then there's kind of a new branch of changes that are coming. So it's called the Power Apps Wave 2. From the 2nd of August, you'll be able to get this early access and you can start to do that. So you guys can test some of this functionality as of now. But from the 1st of October, it'll be general available. So everybody will be able to access this new functionality. There's a full PDF on this link here. So if you were just to click this bit.ly link, then it'll open up all the changes. And that if you download this PDF, absolutely everything will be kind of demonstrated. What I wanted to do is just kind of give you a quick snapshot of some of the key changes that are coming in. So within Power BI, one of the kind of things that's been quite poor with Power BI is the export to Excel functionality. So there's been a huge improvement to that, which allows you to create some live connectors and such. We've also had improvements to the datasets hubs. So organizations that are looking to create datasets that your employees can consume. There's been a lot of improvements from that side of things. We've also had a lot of improvements with the PowerPoint integration. So this is now going to have more comprehensive export and live data feeds as well. The Power Apps and Power Automate, there's a number of different things that come in within this platform. So Power Apps themes are improving. That's something that's historically we had to create a style sheet and a page. That's now getting some additional love and some additional functionality. There's an improved authoring experience, so people who are developing the applications will find this will be less clunky. One of the great things now is this undo functionality, which allows people to revert the changes rather than closing the app and going back into it, and that works with Power Automate as well. They've also kind of added some newer functionality to create Power Automate templates. So if your organization is looking to create templates to reuse, then these Power Automate templates are great starters, so you can start to create your own templates and share those with your co-workers. And the Power Automate desktop has had a huge amount of recorder improvements. So that again has been quite a clunky application that's needed to have some improvements, and there's been some stability and bug fixes within there as well. Power Apps portals, which is a huge area for us at the moment. We're doing a lot of Power Apps portals with our customers, and there's been quite a lot of new functionality added. So search has been improved. We've also got some more API support, which means we can do better integrations and kind of automate a lot of those components. And of most interest is the Power Apps component framework is now supported. So anybody who isn't aware of what the Power Apps component framework is, it's with a Power App that you're developing, like a Canvas app, you're limited to what you can do out of the box and develop those applications. The component framework allows developers to create additional pieces of functionality, additional add-ons for Power Apps that allow you then to kind of bypass some of the limitations. So this has been available for Canvas apps and model-driven apps, and now it's coming to Power Apps portals as well. So it's going to give us a huge amount of capability to extend that platform. We've also got some new services that have come live. So we have a new service which is called Managed Intune. So effectively what we're finding with a lot of our organizations is that they're deploying things like Intune, but they're then struggling to keep on top of all of the new changes, the new updates, so their policies correct, and especially for the larger organizations. So this is based on a 500-seat Microsoft 365 environment. There can be a lot of work that goes into setting up Intune. It can be kind of BitLocker can be enabled, the Defender, the antivirus can be done. But what we find is, especially with things like the security baselines, is those policies become very outdated very quickly. There's better encryptions that can be added. There's more secure policies. There's new policies, especially around Edge, for example, that can secure that. And it almost becomes a full-time job for people within those organizations to make sure, are we keeping on top of this? Have we got the best policies that are in place? So our new Managed Intune service is basically around doing that piece for you. we're kind of testing those policies. We're making sure the baselines don't have any impacts. We're making sure that you've got all of the additional functionality and you're consuming your licenses properly. So you'll see that there's 3 tiers, and obviously each tier provides additional functionality, but it's very much around providing one of our services, an annual security harden review. So this is checking your 365 environment, making sure there's no holes, things like MFA are on, conditional access policies are set up to best practice. We also do some manual monthly portal reviews and checks. So that's kind of going through the settings and casting our eye over them, making sure that the environment's set up. And then we have a host of security settings where we're checking the compliance of devices to make sure they adhere to the portal, checking that Windows Defender is scanning and there's no active threats, ensuring Windows updates and Windows feature updates, which are often forgotten, are being rolled out and managed effectively. And then all of the alerts that you guys may see coming from 365, Valto have developed best practice alerts, and we're making sure that those are being monitored and actioned and not just being left and forgotten. So anybody who's interested in learning more about our managed Intune service, please get in touch. But it's very much around making sure that you're keeping on top of all of the changes, and you've got someone that can manage that for you, as opposed to having to try and learn everything that comes through as well. So yeah, we've kind of flew through that today. Like I said, it's a new format, and we're trying to find our feet with it. So any feedback that you have, Jade will send out a feedback form to you guys following our event, and it'd be great to get your feedback on how we can improve this. And what I was kind of thinking for our next quarterly update is we'll pull in different people from Valto. So instead of me just talking at you for 33 minutes or 45 minutes, we'll loop in Dougie, who's in our Power Platform team, and he can do a bit more of a dive around some of the changes and improvements there. We can loop in Ben, who can talk about some of our new services and offering, and some of our senior MS365 consultants who can talk about those changes. But any feedback that you guys have on how we can improve this, and kind of what we want to do is keep you up to date on what's coming in 365, so you can start to use this technology in your workplace. So places that you can go to find this information, obviously our YouTube channel. The 365 roadmap is a great place. So if anything I talked to you about today you're not sure of, you can jump into here. You could search for video filter, like the new Teams one, and you can see that that's due. It's in development and it's coming at October of this year. So all of the information that I've talked about today is available within that 365 roadmap. We've also got our blog, which is being updated frequently with more detail on some of these posts. So Jade's doing a fantastic job of keeping our blogs up to date, and there's a lot more detail that goes into there that I've covered off as well today. Obviously, our workshops, which we talk about all the time. So any other technology you guys might be interested in, please get in touch and we can kind of do a workshop to show you this technology and help you get things set up. And now we got some time at the end for any follow-up questions that have come through. Jade?
Someone's asked, how do they sign up to the newsletter?
Yeah, so we've got a sign-up form on our website, which you'd be able to join. So Jade, we would also be able to, if you send an email to sales@valto.co.uk, then Jade can get you registered from that perspective. And there's also a link on our website, which we'll include in the follow-up email we do.
And then someone has also asked if there's a limit for attendees. I think they might be referring to the webinar feature on Teams.
There is a limit of how many people can join a webinar. So the webinar limit is 1,000, I believe, at the moment. So that means that it can be only 1,000 people are able to attend a Teams webinar as it stands now.
I think that's it.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, that kind of concludes our session for today. The only other thing to note is that Dougie will be hosting another webinar on the 14th of September, a bit more of a technical dive, and he'll be talking about how Microsoft Forms can be used to automate feedback. So kind of gathering feedback from your customers and then automating the bits and follow-ups from that as well. So that'll be a great one to join. Jade will include that on our follow-up invitation as well, so you can sign up from that. Okay, well, thank you very much for joining, guys, and we'll kind of look forward to seeing you on our next event. Thank you.